Na mtazamaji, zimetimia saa 9 saa 3 saa za Afrika Mashariki. Mtazamaji, kwa moyo mkunjufu na kukaribisha katika matangazo ya Mwanzo TV. Mimi naitwa Victor Wanaswa. Kumbuka leo hii mengi yameweza kutokea. Tumeona kesi ya uchaguzi wa urais ambayo iliweza kuwasilishwa na muungano wa Azimio ikiweza kung'oa nanga mahakamani, na shughuli nzima ilikuwa kuweza kutathmini mambo masuala kadha wa kadha kuhusiana na kesi hiyo ambayo inatarajiwa kung'oa nanga rasmi hiyo kesho, na Wakenya wanasubiri matokeo au uamuzi wa kesi hiyo ifikapo tarehe 9 mwezi Septemba. Kando na hayo, vile vile kumekuwepo matangazo ya washindi ambao waliweza kuibuka washindi katika uchaguzi ulioandaliwa katika kaunti 2 nchini Kenya na maeneo 8 nchini Kenya, maeneo ya ubunge nchini Kenya, na kaunti 2 za Kakamega na Mombasa kwa maana ya ugavana. Vile vile wameweza kutangaza matokeo hayo. Kwa hivyo tuko na mengi tu ambayo tumeweza kuandalia katika matangazo haya, ila kwa sasa hebu tuanze na taarifa yetu kuu ambako Fernandes Baraza ndiye ambaye atachukua uongozi kutoka gavana wa Kakamega anayeondoka Wycliffe Ambenza Oparanya. Baraza ambaye aliwania ugavana kwa Azimio la Umoja alipata kura 192,929 na kumshinda mpinzani wake wa karibu Cleophas Malala wa muungano wa Kenya Kwanza ambaye alifanikiwa kujipatia kura 159,508.
Baraza as duly elected governor of Kakamega County.
I want to appreciate watu wa Kakamega for not disappointing our party leader, kwa sababu Kakamega ni ngome ya Azimio. I also want to appreciate Kakamega people having demonstrated that this county belongs to Azimio by voting in 11 members of parliament out of 13, led by our county returning officer, Joseph Ayat, for making sure that we have free and fair elections, devoid the violence that we witnessed yesterday. But I know Kakamega people are resilient. They were determined to ensure that we get the governor who is development conscious, and I know that from today sisi tumeanza kazi. Mwisho, I want to appreciate security agencies for making sure that there is peace and tranquility during the campaign period. I know it was quite challenging. The whole of yesterday and the day before, you are on high alert to ensure that Kakamega delivers a second governor, who is Fernandes Odinga Barasa. I know this journey was not very easy, and I want to appreciate all my competitors, led by one Cleophas Malala, for making sure that you give us a run for our money. But I know the choice of Kakamega people was profoundly, and I want to welcome all my competitors. We can join hands to serve the people of Kakamega.
This election was postponed by IBC in order to make sure that Kakamega people do not come out in large numbers to vote for Raila Amolo Odinga. And we knew that they wanted this seat to go to Kenya Kwanza. But through your efforts and our efforts, the seat has remained where it belonged, as Azimio. I want to assure you, Governor-elect, that as the outgoing governor, I will give you the necessary support so that you can settle in as soon as possible despite the bribery. Walimwaka pesa. Jameni, walimwaka. Ni mlikula. Lakini mkajua mahali mtapiga kura. Thank you very much for...
Naye aliyekuwa mgombea wa ugavana katika kaunti hiyo ya Kakamega kwa muungano wa Kenya Kwanza, Cleophas Malala, amesalimu amri baada yake kubwagwa na Fernandes Baraza. Malala amewarudishia shukrani wakazi wa Kakamega kwa kumpa nafasi ya kuwahudumia kama seneta kwa miaka 5 na kuahidi kushirikiana na gavana mteule katika kubadili sura ya kaunti hiyo.
Hapa leo haswa mimi kama candidate kusema kwamba nimekubali matokeo ile ambayo imetokezana na ile kura ambayo tulipiga jana. Nimekubali hiyo matokeo sababu katiba yetu inatuambia kwamba uchaguzi utafanywa kila miaka 5 na kutakuwa na mshindi na yule ambaye ameshindwa. So sisi tumekubali matokeo na tumekubali kama vichwa vyetu viko juu kabisa. Kwa sababu tulifanya kila kitu iwezekanavyo, tulikampeni vizuri na tukahakikisha kwamba tumefanya kila kitu ya kutuwezesha kushinda. Lakini kwa mapenzi ya Mwenyezi Mungu yale ambayo imefanyika. Ningependa kuchukua fursa hii kuwapongeza wale wapinzani wangu, Mheshimiwa Fernandes Baraza na Mheshimiwa Ayub Savula. Ningependa kuwapongeza kabisa kwa ile kampeni yenyu ambayo mlifanya, na nyinyi ndio mliibuka ushindi. Sisi hatulalamiki. Tungependa pia kupongeza IEBC kwa ile kazi nzuri walifanya. Hakuna kura iliibiwa Kakamega County. Hakuna kura iliibiwa kabisa. Ile kura...
Tuelekee katika kaunti ya Mombasa ambako Abdul Swamad Nasir ndiye gavana mteule wa kaunti hiyo ya Mombasa baada yake kupata kura 119,083 na kumshinda Hassan Omar ambaye alipata kura 98,108. Wadhifa wa ugavana katika kaunti hiyo ya Mombasa ilivutia wawaniaji 7, ila kinyang'anyiro kikali kilikuwa baina ya wawili hao.
Shafi Mwaganda Makasi 633, Abdul Swamad Sherif Nasir 100.
Walifikiri Abdul Swamad nini? Yatima. Ati babake ameenda mbele ya haki watamkanyaga. Abdul Swamad tuko naye Mombasa, and we love you governor, we love you. We love you governor. Maji. Kiri ni yatima, lakini tumewafinya, and we love you governor. We love you.
Jaribu kuleta ulazimisho ya kuwa ni lazima Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir amtusi Hassan Ali Joho. Katika wakati wote nilikaa ngumu na nikamwambia Hassan Ali Joho, kuna wale uliowafadhili lakini kwa sababu ya siasa waliamua ya kwa njia rahisi ni kuweza kukutusi wewe. Mimi msimamo wangu ninarejelea tena, pale ambao kuna mazuri ya Hassan Ali Joho tuyaendeleze. Kama kuna lolote lenye kuwa limekosewa tuweze kulirekebisha. Lakini kuna baadhi ya watu, tena mimi nataka kuwaambia, mkimwona Mama Nasimu amenyamaza kimya, musione ya kuwa ni kwa sababu nyingine. Ni heshima. Kama nyinyi mumezaliwa katika mitaa ya Majengo, hata mamangu pia amezaliwa katika mitaa ya Majengo. Mkiona ya kuwa hatuwatukani, sio kwa hatuna ulimi, tuna heshima. Jawabu letu leo munalo, na Mwenyezi Mungu, nataka kuambia watu wa Mombasa, mumetukopesha siku moja, tutawalipa kwa haya miaka 5 yanayokuja.
Wewe ndio gavana. Wewe ndio gavana. Wewe ndio gavana. Wewe ndio gavana.
Hebu sasa tuangazie washindi katika kipute cha ubunge katika maeneo bunge 8 yaliyoandaliwa uchaguzi hiyo jana. Na Paul Chebor ndiye mshindi wa eneo bunge la Rongai. Hii baada yake kujizolea kura 27,021 na kumshinda Gideon Moi wa chama cha KANU ambaye alipata kura 14,714, huku Luka Kigen wa chama cha Mashinani akija watatu kwa kura 593. Na katika eneo bunge la Kitui Rural, David Mwalika wa Wiper alibuka mshindi kwa kupata kura 19,745 na kumshinda Charles Nyamai wa UDA ambaye alipata kura 10,178. Na katika eneo bunge la Kitui, katika eneo bunge la Pokot Kusini, David Kosin wa KUP alihifadhi kiti chake na kupata baada yake kupata kura 28,225 na kumshinda Simon Kalekem wa UDA ambaye alipata kura 15,298. Na hatimaye katika eneo bunge la Kacheliba, Titus Lote wa chama cha KUP aliibuka mshindi kwa kujizolea kura 20,073 na kumwangusha mbunge wa sasa Mark Lemon Cole ambaye alipata kura 17,963, na watatu wakiwa ni John Lodinyo wa KANU aliyepata kura 1,346. Na tukisonga mbele ni kuwa balozi wa Marekani nchini Kenya Margaret Whitman mapema leo amewapa kongole wagombea kiti cha urais kwa kuwasilisha kesi ya kupinga matokeo ya uchaguzi katika mahakama ya upeo. Akizungumza jijini Kisumu, Whitman amesema kuwa aliridhishwa na amani iliyodumishwa na Wakenya, huku akiwarai wadau husika kuwa na subra wakiendelea kusubiri uamuzi wa mahakama kuhusu uchaguzi. Aidha, balozi huyo alisema kuwa ilani ya usalama iliyotolewa na ubalozi wa Marekani mapema mwezi Agosti kuhusu kuzuru kaunti ya Kisumu ilikuwa inalenga usalama wa raia wa Marekani wanaoishi jijini Kisumu na haikutolewa kwa nia ya kutoa taswira mbaya kuhusu kaunti ya Kisumu.
By the Kenyan process so far, the elections were held peacefully. The country seemed to be united around following the process. And every candidate, as I understand in Kenya, has the legitimate right to file a grievance with the Supreme Court. That was done peacefully and thoughtfully. And so now we all await for this September 5th adjudication by the Supreme Court. And so I think we are, as I said, impressed by the process thus far and how both candidates have tried to follow the appropriate processes. I can't guarantee that there will never be other alerts because it is required by U.S. law. So when there's any concerns at all, we must issue alerts. But it's never targeted towards one particular group or area. It's because this is where we have the vast majority of our citizens and
Na mahakama ya upeo leo hii imetupilia mbali ombi lililowasilishwa na mawakili wa rais mteule William Ruto kutaka waongezewe muda kuwasilisha ushahidi zaidi katika kesi iliyowasilishwa na muungano wa Azimio kupinga kuchaguliwa kwa rais mteule William Ruto katika uchaguzi wa Agosti. Mahakama hiyo hata hivyo imejitenga na vuta ni kuvuta inayoshuhudiwa katika tume hiyo ya IEBC na kusisitiza kuwa tume hiyo inafaa kusuluhisha migogoro kati ya makamishna wake. Vile vile mahakama hiyo ya upeo imeorodhesha masuala 9 ambayo itafanya uamuzi kuyahusu baada ya kujumuisha baadhi ya kesi za kupinga matokeo ya uchaguzi huo.
That I practice in other jurisdictions. Now the ball of contention is And I know, Your Honor, you have already addressed the issue. The ball of contention is, I'm a presidential candidate. I was in this room this morning. My counsels were refused to come in because we had already made a ruling apportioning the number of lawyers that were supposed to come in here, which is okay. But what I want to beg or to pray is that I pray to be given some opportunity, probably under your discretion, so that I can also be enjoined to speak through my counsel on case number 7, of which I was enjoined as an interested party. I've already submitted my responses, and in this room and in the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga and Honorable Ruto, I think I'm the most aggrieved person here, despite the fact that we have also other interested parties. You should also take cognizance that I've run for election in this country. I've traversed this country. I am very seriously injured, and I need to be given an opportunity under exceptional circumstances, if any. And finally, I would also like to thank those who are here, especially Gideon Muigai and James Orengo, for having successfully made me to be who I am today, and my alumni, of course, the Chief Justice, that please let's look beyond the mirror so that we can look at justice to be done. Even though people say or collude or speak of fairness, fairness starts with me in this room. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Wajakoya. We indeed recognize the fact that you are one of the presidential candidates in these last elections. We also are aware that you are an advocate. We issued directions regarding the use of this courtroom, and we explained why we only have so many lawyers allowed here. One is the space itself. Number 2 is the COVID protocols that require us to keep some social distancing. And number 3 is security. And so we have another room, High Court number 1. If you want to observe from there, that will be well and good. But in this room, we have counsel who are fully participating in these proceedings. So you can observe from the next door, and that's how it's going to go. You've had the last directions, we've given the further directions, that even those counsel who are here, who exceed the number that we gave this morning, will not be allowed in this room. Because we want to leave this room for the purpose for which we gather tomorrow. So we thank you, Professor Wajakoya. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. Professor Wajakoya, I think one important thing must come out is that you are a presidential candidate, and we really give you all the accolades and really respect your exercise of your democratic right, and all Kenyans many Kenyans admire you, and we believe you did a great job. However, if you, under the law, under Article 140 of the Constitution, if you are aggrieved as a candidate, you have the first opportunity, you have a right under the law to file a petition challenging the validity. You did not do that, Professor Wajakoya, so you lost that opportunity. So with respect, you have to bear the consequences.
Naam, ndivyo hali ilivyokuwa katika mahakama ya upeo leo hii, huku majaji 7 wa mahakama hiyo wakikutana na mawakili kutoka pande zote na kuweza kujadili masuala kadha wa kadha ambayo yatakuwa yanazingatiwa kesi hiyo inapong'oa nanga rasmi hiyo kesho. Na tumekuahidi kwamba tutakuwa na mjadala kuhusiana na kesi hiyo ambayo inaendelea katika mahakama ya upeo, na studioni tuko naye wakili Silas Akiro ambaye atakuwa anatusaidia kupambanua kuhusiana na kesi hiyo. Hivyo basi bila kupoteza wakati, hebu tumkaribishe studioni ndiposa tuanze mahojiano hayo. Asante sana wakili kwa kuja studioni ili uweze kutusaidia katika kuchanganua masuala ambayo yanaambatana na kesi ambayo iko katika mahakama ya upeo. Na hebu tuanze. Let's start by the mini polls that have been conducted in Kakamega, Mombasa, and also in 4 other constituencies in the country. In your opinion, do you think the postponement of the elections in those areas was done intentionally by IEBC, and did it affect the outcome of the presidential elections that was announced in August this year?
Well, thank you so much for, first of all, inviting me into your studio. As you have indicated to your listeners, my name is Silas Akiro. I'm an advocate in this country. I work with the firm of Gattam and Associates. Yeah. Now, back to your question. The IEBC has not informed us, has not given us or rebutted the claims that the postponement was, it was targeted, because there have been those claims and they have not come out to rebut such claims. And so we take it as it is, unless they basically come out and say that, hey, this indeed happened because of one or two reasons, other than the reason that we know, that is the exchange of images from from some of the ballot papers, because we saw that there are some ballot papers that were supposed to be for Kakamega that were found in Kirinyaga, and there are those that were supposed to be from Mombasa that were found in other places, also prompting the IEBC to postpone those elections. But in my view, I doubt if it really meant something big in terms of the election voter turnout or the voter apathy. Because in Kenya, if you'd ask me, majority vote for the presidency. Had we seen the presidential elections being postponed in those mentioned parts, then we would say that, it somehow contributed to. But when it comes to postponement of the gubernatorial, member of parliament, and the member of county assembly seats, I levy very little regard as to that was the reason, the main reason for voter apathy or an influence on the vote outcome.
And then we saw Azimio coalition carrying the day in most of the areas that IEBC conducted elections. Yesterday we saw Fernandez Baraza of Azimio emerging the winner in Kakamega gubernatorial race. We also saw Abdul Somad Nasir being the next governor in Mombasa County. What does that mean in the Kenyan perspective?
The mood of the country as we speak is partly moody and partly celebratory. But you say that majority of the people have postponed their celebration because they were for the former prime minister taking the presidency. And if you link this to the fact that these were the two strongholds of Mr. Odinga, for instance, in Kakamega, you see the trend. The trend was that 9 out of 10 seats, rather 10 seats were taken by the Azimio coalition party, but 9 out of the 10 were for the ODM party. This is a county where one of the principles of the Kenya Kwanza coalition actually comes from. And it was expected that he would deliver much bigger for his coalition, but it did not happen as it was expected. And so that brings me to merging this question with the first question you asked about was it intentional? Well, we have seen, especially when the votes were coming out, there are different factions that were actually trying to predict the outcome. They were even listing down the number of counties they have taken, and there was a statement like, we are waiting for 2 counties that we can control the Council of Governors. That was a statement from some members of the Kenya Kwanza coalition, as we saw their tweets. And so that would also mean that somehow they were targeting these 2 seats, considering that if you have really monitored the way these coalitions shaped themselves from the onset, Cleophas Malala was the expected governor to be of Kakamega. It is said that is the one who managed to pull Mudavadi and Wetangula into Kenya Kwanza. And it is said that as a reward, the Kenya Kwanza team decided to fill him for the gubernatorial seat for Kakamega, where they managed to request, or rather, they managed to speak to Boni Halwale to step down for him as a reward, so to say. Yes. But what we see is that Mr. Odinga has actually maintained being the dalliance of the hearts of his former, we call them not former, but his major strongholds. It was really inconceivable that Kenya Kwanza would take Mombasa and Kakamega. It was inconceivable. And of course, as it was inconceivable, so it has taken place that ODM has carried the day in those 2.
And then let us dig deeper into today's session, the pre-trial conference by the 7 judges. We saw them dismissing a petition by Moses Kuria and also Wahiga Mwaure, among others. What do you make of this?
Now, for presidential petitions, the authority is expressed from Article 140 of the Constitution of Kenya that that directs how that court is supposed to be convened and the purpose for which it is supposed to be convened. For example, for instance, Moses Kuria's petition was not challenging the outcome of the presidential elections. Rather, he had an issue with the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and the forum for that was not the election court. That was supposed to go to the lower courts, probably the High Court, should start it from the High Court, his grievances. But again, in my view, and in the view of the former Chief Justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga, yes, is that petition was a kangaroo type of a petition that sought to waste the court's time. Now, when you come to David Wahiga Mwaure, his petition also sought for him to be named as an interested party and not to challenge the outcome of the elections. So the constitution of this court as it is, or as you have seen it, is on one purpose: for anybody, any Kenyan challenging the outcome of the presidential election that was held on 9th August 2022, declared on 15th August 2022.
Then we saw the petitioners, in this case, hiring 54 lawyers to represent them in the case. But the judges stated categorical that only 4 lawyers will be submitting in court. And in terms of also time allocated, do you think the court was fair to some of those petitioners in terms of time allocation, bearing in mind that some of them have about 50 lawyers representing them in court?
If you were in the shoes of the bench, for example, and you have been given a timeline that has been cast on stone, as they have been given, you would agree with me that even giving these lawyers 108 from one side, another is about 88 or so, the total of almost 200. And then you want to apportion them even 5 minutes. The court is not going to be able to achieve its ultimate goal of delivering a judgment within record 14 days. Going by the fact that, you see, they have to set the rules on the ground like they did it today during the pre-trial. There were certain rulings that were given. Some rulings actually were made yesterday based on the submissions that the judges were able to peruse through. And some rulings arose from the submissions, the oral submissions that we saw in court today. And for me, if you ask me, they were very, very fair. The judges were very fair in the manner in which they allocated time. They were very fair.
And then we saw the court directing a recount of votes in 15 polling stations. From where you sit, are we going to witness what we saw in 2017, whereby Kenyans were sent back to vote for the presidency?
Well, since this matter is before the Honorable Court, it is fatal to make a decision on that question, because it is squarely put on their shoulders to give us such a decision as at now, prior to which we would have made our own speculations, or not speculations per se, but our own view of how election court would have handled it. But suffice not to say, the court, the Supreme Court of Kenya, under Article 140, as read with Section 83 of the Elections Act, Laws of Kenya, has the following powers. 1, to order a recount to be done. 2, to order fresh elections, that is to invalidate the elections that have been declared, and order that the elections be set again after 60 days. And number 3, to order that the IEBC grants the certificate to the right person after the recount. They have that capacity, they have that authority in law to give such orders. And this squarely rises from the fact that if the prayers are framed in such a way that it seeks to invalidate the elections, the election results, then the election court has to delve into issues such as irregularities and illegalities within the process. Remember, in 2017, the court made a decision, a ruling that elections is not an event, but it is a process. So you have to tell me that this 2022 general election, the process began from this point and proceeded up to this point. So we take the entire procedure and weigh it against the provisions of the Constitution or the relevant laws. And if we find that there is a particular process that was messed up with, remember, what does the law say? The law that we're going to weigh this process on. The law speaks about free, fair, and verifiable. Free, fair, verifiable. And the Act includes integrity and security of the technology employed in electioneering processes. So if we find that, if the court finds that the IEBC conducted this election in a manner that was not free, a manner that was not fair, and a manner that was not verifiable, then those are illegalities. And when we talk about credibility and integrity, that gives rise to irregularities. So if illegalities and irregularities are found within IEBC's process, culminating into the declaration of the result, then the election court has to raise the hammer of justice and declare that the elections were invalid. And where such declaration is made, then the IEBC, if its commissioners are not interdicted or incriminated, so to say, and that they still maintain capacity to hold those offices and serve as such, then the election court will order them to hold or prepare and hold another election within 60 days. But where they are interdicted or convicted of crimes within our laws, then of course Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya on integrity of public servants will catch up with them. And where integrity of public servants catches up with these officers, then they have no other option but to step aside. And where they step aside, and the procedure and the process of bringing in new commissioners takes too long, but I believe the relevant parties will run to the Supreme Court again, this time not challenging the election, not petitioning for challenging of the election result, but to question the court on a looming constitutional crisis. Because the repeat election has to take place within 60 days. But where these IEBC officials are to be replaced, and the period is spanning into 1 year plus to replace them, then you see we are automatically going to plunge into a constitutional crisis. And the only parties that are blessed, I can say, with the powers to declare or to speak concerning the constitutional processes is the court. So the court will pronounce itself and say Now, because of this now, we are now confronted with the doctrine of necessity. So it is now going to be necessary that the election be pushed forward, and the relevant parties, of course, you know, as an application is made and the parties are seconded to the parliament, vetting takes place, and then the president appoints them. Right now, as we speak, parliament has not even elected their speaker. We're just doing mic testing in the August House. So you see that at that particular point, there is a possibility of a constitutional crisis. Although I don't want to speak about it, but of course the court has to be cognizant of the fact. If they are incriminating the IEBC officials, they will have to take into considerations how is the constitutional provision of a repeat election within 60 days be considered. And if they're ordering a repeat election, they will also have to take into account this other aspect of the appointment of the IEBC officials. So that's why you see in 2017, and in fact in all those petitions, we have had a situation where elections are nullified, but nobody is held culpable. And if you go to my social media account, you see me indicating there that elections have no capacity to commit offenses. It is the individuals who handle the elections that have the capacity to commit election offenses. And where such happens, then those individuals have to be brought to book. So you see that the court has been kind of afraid, let me not say afraid, but a bit lenient when they declare repeat elections to incriminate, not to incriminate, but to convict rather, to convict the officials of an electoral agency that has been found to have committed illegalities and irregularities. So there are a lot to be considered there.
And then there is a bad blood between commissioners in IEBC, as witnessed during the announcement of the presidential election, and also during as they were filing their affidavit at the Supreme Court. Now, in the event the Supreme Court finds that this election was conducted in a manner that is not free, fair, and credible, meaning Kenyans will be going back to the drawing board to elect their president. Do you think IEBC, as currently constituted, have the capacity to hold or to conduct the repeat polls?
Yes, because either faction can handle election. The only problem is on the chair. There are strict provisions as to who should be the chair of the commission. This is somebody with a law degree and has practiced for at least 15 years and in the rank of almost a judge of the Supreme Court. So you see that the 4 IEBC commissioners, only one has a law degree, but I think it's a 1-year degree, 1-year practice. That does not qualify. Whereas if the 4 resign, the 3 can still handle elections, because Article 251 of the Constitution provides that the independent institutions should have a quorum of not less than 3 and not more than 9. And IEBC is one of the 15 independent institutions contemplated in our Constitution. Now, in this regard, there being 3 is sufficient. That is the constitutional minimum. In the event that the 4 do not resign, because they cannot be forced to resign unless proper reasons are put across to convince the country that these people are liable to resignation. They should resign. Where that such scenario happens, then if they do not resign, then there will still remain 7. And that is what the Supreme Court spoke about today, when the Supreme Court said that a majority of the fallout is internal affair that should not be dragged into court to consider before they handle, before they exhaust all available avenues to try and reconcile them and try and see if they can come back to work together.
And what is the best way possible of choosing IEBC commissioners? Because the 4 that had a contrary opinion as concerning the results that were announced by Wafula Chebukati are purported to be appointed by the president.
Not purported. They were appointed by the president, and that is the law. I just told you a few minutes ago that a vacancy is announced, applications are made, recommendations are made, vetting is done at the parliament, the names are forwarded to the president, and the president appoints. If you go to the internet right now and query the Google search, who appointed Chebukati, it will automatically bring you President Uhuru Kenyatta appoints Chebukati as the chair of the commission. That is his mandate. So remember, do not differentiate politics from the behavior of IEBC. There has been this narrative that the president appointed the 4, but then the question would be, who appointed the 3? If they were not appointed, and if they cannot own up the fact that they were appointed by the president, then the appointment is null. Because the only appointing authority of the commissioners, the IEBC, is the president. But that is after vetting by the National Assembly.
Okay, thank you so much, Wakili, for coming and also for sharing your insights pertaining to the case before a Supreme Court.
Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Naam, asante sana mtazamaji. Huyo amekuwa ni wakili Silas Akiro, ambaye amekuwa akitufahamisha mawili matatu kuhusiana na jinsi sheria inavyosema kuhusiana na kesi ambayo iko mbele ya majaji 7 wa mahakama ya upeo. Kumbuka ni kesi ambayo itakuwa inaanza rasmi hiyo kesho. Leo kulikuwepo na kikao cha kwanza cha kuweza tu kuweka mambo sawa kabla ya kesi yenyewe kung'oa nanga rasmi hiyo kesho. Hivyo basi tutakuwa tukiendelea kukuletea mahojiano na wataalamu wa masuala ya kisheria ili tu kuweza kukuelewesha kuhusiana na mambo yote ambayo yatakuwa yanaendelea katika mahakama hiyo ya upeo kuambatana na uchaguzi wa nchini Kenya, uchaguzi wa urais hapa nchini Kenya. Hivyo basi kutoka kwa kikosi kizima ambacho kimeweza kufanikisha matangazo haya, mimi sina la ziada. Naitwa Victor Wanaswa na kutakia usiku mwema.